I'm Dave Rogers. I'm a policy advisor with NOFA Vermont. This is another one in our series of discussions about policy issues and policy topics. Today we're at Vermont Compost Company in Montpelier. I'm with Karl Hammer, who's the owner, operator, CFO, CEO of this operation.
Resident for life.
Vermont Compost is a very well-established and respected compost operation, and Karl has been composting for almost his whole life and has been in Montpelier since 1995. So Karl, thanks for being on here.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't you just give us a little overview of what Vermont Compost is all about, who it provides compost to, its importance to agriculture in Vermont. We particularly are interested in organic agriculture, of course. So just a little overview of what's going on here and who it serves.
I came to composting from vegetable growing, organic vegetable growing. I became aware very early in my vegetable growing career that the compost was going to be very important to sustain vegetable growing. And I had come from dairy background, small scale Vermont style, which also included poultry and equines, and I knew that blending of all of those manures made for powerful fertility. We founded Vermont Compost I incorporated it in 1993 with the intention of using otherwise undervalued or squandered or wasted resources and combining them with agricultural resources to produce compost and compost-based growing mixes that we thought of as suitable for organic food production. We have 594, as of April 1st, I think, we had 594 commercial customers, and 208 of them are in Vermont.
Yeah. So, and I know, I mean, we're an organic farming association. Compost is the foundation of healthy and productive growing on organic farms. And Vermont Compost is a big reason on many farms, 208
that are in Vermont,
that these farmers are successful. So you know, the reason we're here today and what prompted our discussion here today is because there's an issue that's come up that just doesn't make any sense. And actually is counterproductive in terms of commercial growers being able to make a living and be profitable. It doesn't make any sense from a closing the loop perspective, making responsible decisions and having responsible practices in the communities and on farms. And this issue has to do with the taxation of compost unfairly. We want to talk about that here today. And Karl, maybe you could just give us an overview of what this issue is, and what is it that's unfair about the taxation, the state taxation of your products and compost produced by other composters.
When we incorporated the business in 1993, we shortly thereafter got a sales tax identification or a sales tax account so that we could sell t-shirts and hats, which in those days actually were subject to sales tax, which they're not anymore. But over the years, we've sold a few other things. We've sold books and calendars, and we have been filing with the tax department, I think since '94, but small amounts of money. And so and we'd had conversations about the taxability of compost and potting soil over the years with folks, because we're right in Montpelier and we're handy to go visit, and folks from the tax department.
Yes.
And we'd always said, and they'd agreed, that whenever and wherever compost or compost products are used to grow food, if the purchaser's stated intention is that they intend to grow food, then it's not sales taxable and requires no paperwork.
Just like many other.
Like an egg, like a tomato. And in those days, a tomato seed wasn't taxable. Anything you used to grow the tomato wasn't taxable.
So synthetic fertilizers
wasn't taxable.
These things are not taxed.
They were not taxed. They were not taxed prior to 2009. There was a law change in 2007. Okay, the law changed in 2007 affected home gardeners, retail sales of fertilizer. Mm-hmm. So home gardeners are now being charged for pesticides and fertilizers.
Sales tax.
sales tax, and in most places, undoubtedly compost products, because the tax department has been giving that opinion to retailers pretty aggressively since they made the law change. They haven't really outreached to farmers. What they have now said, in our case, is that even farmers, when they're buying compost or potting soil as production inputs, that those are never untaxed, even if, so it's quite a perverse and bizarre.
They're subject to the tax. What about other inputs that commercial farmers buy?
No, fertilizer is specifically exempt in the laundry list in the law. So
Pesticides?
Pesticides are exempt in the laundry list in the law. Bale string is exempt. Silo covers are exempt. Plastic for greenhouses is exempt.
So
compost wasn't in the room when the laundry list was getting
And the
written.
importance of compost has grown over the years, and we need to come back and rethink this. So the tax department came to you and said, you have not been collecting sales tax.
I'll tell the story a little bit. So out of a clear blue sky in August of 2012, we get a letter announcing that they've reviewed our sales tax filings for 2009, 10, and 9, 10, and 11. They've reviewed our, and they note that we paid very little sales tax, and they want to audit us because of that. So call up the person and say, well, yeah, we only charge sales tax on books and calendars, and we don't sell a lot of books and calendars. Clothing, the hats and t-shirts are no tax anymore. And we don't really sell, we sell these food producing things, and we don't charge tax for that. She said, well, your website says you also are good for ornamental plants. Somewhere, somebody, sometime wrote a phrase, and food and ornamental. It's like, websites. Yes, you could. And that taxonomy is confusing enough as it is, because you got people, some of them charging sales tax for violas and some not. Well, I have a lot of, my bookkeeper's a grower, she charges sales tax for viola because it's a flower. So a woman, she charges for geranium, but she doesn't charge for a tomato or a thyme plant or a rosemary plant. So a woman said, well, I use the violas as salad, which is perfectly legitimate, coming mainstream thing. She shouldn't be paid, because intent, it says in law, if a person presents itself, including corporate, as a farmer, that you're supposed to take their word for it and give them the exemption. It's in the law. So the tax department came to us and said, look, you don't pay tax on this. And I said, but we've been through this before. We've had these conversations. And of course they said, do you have this in writing? And I said, well, in the Vermont where that conversation happened, the having of the conversation, no paperwork generated. We were filing the whole time. Our books are your books, of course, anytime you want. But I don't think you should be auditing me based on a policy, something that needs to be decided at a policy level, because it's very expensive to audit somebody. And you have this is the taillight out, a prima facie case. And they said, oh, wise guy. And they took our federal income tax filing as a company, and they pointed their laser 6% gun at it and delivered themselves of a workbook assessing a $394,000 tax and penalty for non-compliance.
And you had not collected the tax from the growers?
No, I've not. No.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, that got my attention, as it was intended to do.
So what's the fix?
Pay them. But
No, I mean.
The fix for us.
We're not here. You're not going to make an announcement that you're going to pay this.
No. Well, we've
right?
Okay. The current status on the solstice, June 21st, the tax department delivered itself of what's called the invoice. I'm no longer being audited. I've made my arguments to my auditors. The invoice has been delivered, and that's about $116,000 right now, and that includes some penalties. The max, they're asking for the max, which that's new. They didn't used to go for the max on penalties. After all, pretty clear we didn't know this was happening. We weren't in the room. We been doing business this way for a long time, filing it with the state. They're 6,000 feet from their office to my office. Yeah. It took 3 years to get here, which again, that's just how none of that is mitigating per se in law. So they've delivered themselves of the invoice, and we now have 60 days to make an appeal of their decision, which we are intending to make, and we're going to make it on Thursday the 8th of August, and we're going to do it a little shoulder to shoulder at the tax commissioner's office, because we really feel like the politics of this is, we don't understand it fully, or what the name of the game really is, but why they may be insisting on clarification from the, I mean, what they say is they think this is how the law is now, and they need the legislature to change it.
Okay, so suppose the legislature changes this, will the tax department then say, okay, fine, we're not going to...
That's not clear. It depends on how the legislature changes it.
So what can people who are watching do if they're concerned about this? What are a couple of steps that individuals
I hope
can
that
take
actually
at
it's
this
going to be
point?
possible at the NOFA website to find information about the events.
And I would think people are also going to be able to, and should, contact their legislators and say, you know what,
senators.
This bill is going to be working its way through. We want you to support it. It just makes good sense. And all of this stems from compost being left off a list of tax-exempt items.
Right, because there was a tax law in 2007, and then there's rulemaking, and agencies tend to kind of collate and write their own rule with legislative input, and that's when the lobbyists get in there and say, I want fertilizer on that list. You say, well, and the lawyers who actually write the prose of laws for legislators, there are several of them in the State House, always say the same thing when somebody says, I want fertilizer on the list. They say, we shouldn't make a list. We should define a category. Yeah. And then, because if it's not on the list, exemptions are narrow, and the tax department, if it's not on the list, it's not on the list. How stupid it is, that's up to the legislature.
And that's what the legislators, that's the approach the legislature is taking. They're trying to come up with something.
They're talking about adding to the list, because getting things off the list, lobbyists get paid to put things on.
But aren't they seeking to develop a broad category, soil amendments?
There's a lot of language going around, and the fun has only just begun.
So stay tuned on this. NOFA is going to be involved as it moves forward.
Rural Vermont is hopefully going to be.
Vermont.
We're looking out to reach out to any of the food justice folks.
Any folks who are interested in, who are
water keepers.
farmers.
Everybody has a dog in this fight.
That's right.
Everybody has a dog in this fight. We've tried to we deal with regulators at the Agency of Natural Resources and a little bit at the policy level. But the Agency of Natural Resources has a big set of dogs in this fight if they want to achieve the phosphorus reductions that are mandated.
That's right.
There's nobody in the state that shouldn't be concerned about this problem. Is my view. Of course.
Well, as always, Karl, thank you. It's been interesting speaking with you and visiting you once again. And I think if you go to the NOFA webpage, there'll be some announcements about the activity in terms of delivering the appeal. And as we go forward and the legislature starts up again, there'll be information coming from NOFA and other organizations about how that's going, and we'll try to engage the membership in getting involved. So, thank you.
Thank you.